On a serious note,
Yeah.
since you saw a lot of money early on, didn't it make sense to you that, hey, this is a path that makes sense for me to pursue rather than going for a conventional job approach?
See, when see the money part of it was there, okay, but when you're young in your like early 20s, right? You don't really think, at least me personally, at that time, the narrative around the environment that I grew up in didn't really, look at money from that perspective. Okay, I never thought about money as a means to do anything. Okay, it was mostly what I like to do and what I wanted to do, what I enjoyed doing. Those were some of the things that really attracted me.
Hey guys, welcome to the Rare Earth podcast. My name is Manoj, engineer by qualification, a banker by profession, and a podcaster by passion. My goal is to really bring people who have actually charted the unconventional path, explore their learnings, and share that with you. So I'm super excited to have you join me on this show. And now let's get the show started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rare Earth podcast. And my guest today is Arun Benty. He's the co-founder and head of business development at Fandefi, a platform to create and sell utility NFTs. He's also a co-founder and director of business development at Trellisys and co-founder and head of business development at Papertrell. Arun is one of that friend I reach out to when I really want to hear a very insightful, very tangential point of view. People generally echo the similar thoughts, right? But with Arun, you will actually get to see a completely new angle, and he comes up with brilliant ideas. And in this episode, we really cover a lot of ground. We talk about his childhood, his early work years, his passion for technology, and his philosophy towards life and entrepreneurship. Some of the key highlights of this episode includes how he started his first company, Trellisys, which was 22 years ago, and what services the company provides to its customers. Then why he believes entrepreneurship is a team sport. We speak about NFTs. Yes, you must have heard this a couple of times if you're part of this world, and how it is the latest emerging trend in blockchain technology. So this was a total fun conversation for me, and by the end of this episode, I am sure you will just love Arun as much as I do. So without taking much time, please enjoy my wide-ranging conversation with the one and only Arun Benty. All right, welcome to the show, Arun.
Thanks, Manoj.
So this is something I think I've been waiting to invite you to the Rare Earth show, because you're the guy whom I call, when I have one of those shower thoughts where I have a business idea, and, I feel there is this one guy I can really bounce this idea with, and you're really, brilliant with software technology. You're exceptional with your way of thinking about different things. So I feel, you come in with ideas from a completely unique angle. So I'm really, really very delighted to have you on the show.
Thanks a lot, Manoj. Whenever I get your phone call, I know that, okay, I have to be prepared. There's something interesting I have to say. I have to contribute something, So yes, but I really enjoy, interacting with you. It has been great, man. It's been really great. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so for my listeners, today's conversation actually could be quite wide-ranging, because Arun specializes in a whole set of things, be it parenting, be it, technology, be it the future of, crypto. So there's a lot of areas that we could bounce around. So specifically in the field of NFT is something that I will be touching upon with Arun. And this is a field that I'm interested in, but I know very little of. So looking forward to learn from you, Arun.
Sure, absolutely. You're right. I mean, I've been contrarian. That's kind of like what I would sort of, define myself as. When everyone is running in one direction, I tend to run in the other direction. Okay, so yeah, it's been like sort of a motto for me.
Yeah, so I was doing some research before, inviting you to this show. And it's funny, like, when you talk to your friends, you just talk to them, right? But when you have to have this kind of a formal setup, I was doing some read up, like, what's this guy's story? And then like your LinkedIn bio says you're a co-founder of one company, followed by the co-founder of the next company, followed by the co-founder of the next company. So seems like very interesting. So you started off, could you just tell us how you started your journey and you being an entrepreneur from the beginning, right?
Absolutely. I can, if I have to sort of give you sort of a background in terms of when I started. My first business partner was my mom.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, right.
And what was your business, the first business?
It was desktop publishing. Okay.
Okay.
So to back up a little bit, I was doing my bachelor's in computer science. This was probably, what year was it? Maybe 92, 93. And St. Joseph's Arts and Science. And when we were in second year, we started a computer science club.
Okay.
As part of our, college, and me and I think 5 or 6 of my friends, we started this monthly magazine as part of the college. That magazine is what started everything for me. It's sort of my genesis. Okay, so we were just a bunch of kids in college, and we thought we will do something interesting. Second year of college.
How old were you then?
I would have been, I think, 18 years old, maybe 17, 18.
Right,
that was my age. And so we had this concept of starting a magazine. And our idea was this magazine should survive even after we leave college, right? So when we sat down and brainstormed, and we were a bunch of brilliant guys, okay, but really crazy fellows. And we said, okay, we'll name it Generations, okay, so which means like for generations to come, this magazine will survive.
Right, the legacy.
Legacy. Of course, it only survived for 1 year, but that's another matter. But, it was very interesting. So we would never attend classes. We would sit down and figure out what to do with the magazine. Okay, that was my whole of second year went in that. The interesting bit was the magazine was completely self-funded by us. It was freely distributed.
Wow.
3,000 copies every month.
3,000 copies?
3,000 copies.
That's a large number, okay.
Yes, it was completely ad supported.
Wow.
Okay, so here's what we did. We went to Aptech and we told them, we are from St. Joseph's Arts and Science.
Just to back up, what is Aptech? Is it the computer
Aptech is
company?
a computer science, computer course like NIIT.
Right,
Aptech.
during that time in
during
India,
that time,
right? Yes, yes.
So it was a huge, it was a huge thing.
Right.
And there were two competing companies. There was Aptech on one side and there was NIIT on one side.
Right.
So here's what we did. We created a proposal.
Okay.
And we said, look, the best, the cream of Bangalore's, computer science, studies in this college. And if you're an up and coming, computer science computer institute, and if you want access to our students, this is your best chance. So we went to Aptech and we said, we already have a deal with NIIT. Okay, so you guys decide what you want to do. We went to NIIT and we said, we have a deal with Aptech. You guys decide fast. Okay. So it was my first, sort of the start of how the world works. Okay. So
wow. So that's a brilliant sales approach for somebody at 18 years. And I'm curious, what triggered that kind of an approach? Like how did you get, this is an angle that you can really pursue?
We had some pretty crooked minds in our group. Okay. So that's how I would put it. Okay. Diabolical minds. Okay. So our idea was basically, how do we make some money, okay, when we are in college and have some fun? Okay.
Right.
That was the idea. And so we started this concept. So the guys at Aptech bit the bullet and they said, like, okay, we will do it. Don't give the deal to Aptech. We'll do it. Okay.
Don't give the deal to NIIT.
NIIT, and we will do it. Okay. So they signed up with us. There was no written agreement, nothing. It was purely word of mouth with the center head from MG Road. That's it. Okay. Very, very simple agreement. We told them we'll give you our back page and the footer on every page.
Right.
But here's the condition. You cannot stop us from taking ads from other companies and including other computer institutes that are competing with you. Okay. They said, like, who are these guys? It's fine. It's all a bunch of kids, right? They said, like, forget it. Just give
Do it, whatever.
Yeah. And we said, please donate some books to our college library as well. So they donated a few hundred books to our library. And that's how we started. Now, our college management had no clue that this is what we are doing. Okay. They had no idea.
That you guys are collecting funds and you're actually making this newsletter and this publication going live. Okay.
So my first job was, I was in charge of the ad revenue for the magazine. So me and another classmate of mine, every day during lunch break, 1 to 2 o'clock, we would walk out of college and I would sell ads for our newsletter. Okay. And the first month was terrible. We didn't get any ads. Okay. We, went to gymnasiums. We went to restaurants. We would go to places like that and try and sell ads. I still remember the first contract we got was some 15,000 rupees or something for 1 year half-page ad.
Not bad.
It's pretty good.
Okay, yeah.
So as soon as we got the check and we didn't have a bank account. So my personal account, okay, and luckily I had a account back then, was the treasurer, like sort of treasury, right? So the guy wrote a check into my personal name, okay, and he gave me a 15,000 rupee check. This was a company called Career Plan, okay. They used to train students for
aspiring
IIT,
students for
CAT.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That was my first sale. Actually, my first sale. I'll never forget that. So as soon as I got the check, my classmate was like, dude, this is it. Let's not tell anyone, okay? It's 15,000. Okay. I was like, listen, I'm not a crook, okay? This is our venture. You don't like skim from your venture, right? So it was like a great thing. I remember that feeling. It was amazing. So we went back, and then, it started, this whole idea of like just going out and selling ads became this thing, that the only thing that we would do. Right.
So you got the taste of success very early on, in the sense you really hustled quite a bit, but you got a substantial, subscription sale done early on, and you got to see money.
Yeah. So that was the thing, right? First is to be able to walk into an establishment with a piece of paper and to be able to talk confidently is something that I think everyone has to try. First off, the earlier you try it, okay, the better you are in your journey as an entrepreneur, right? You should know how to take rejection, because you'll meet 10 people and 9 will say, don't even come near me, get out, okay? That feeling you will not get if you don't do door-to-door sales. I 100% believe in that, okay? Today we try and do it with emails. Come on. You're sending an email. Try doing that in real life. Okay. How many people can say that? Yeah, you can really take rejection. Well, taking that rejection by walking into somebody's establishment and trying to sell something is like, I would say, like sort of a mandatory sales skill that you need. Okay?
Right. So like the boot camp for that, right?
Absolute boot camp, man. It is.
I think nowadays. People go into deep state of depression if there are no more than 3 or 4 likes to the post they put on Facebook or Instagram. There are people who really suffer that rejection. So
absolutely right.
Yeah, it's really funny that people haven't really checked that tolerance level in the real world out there.
Exactly, and look, I think the world also has changed, and now we take rejection, in the virtual sense, we take it very much to heart. Okay?
Right.
So, and I think, the world is not fair. And when you actually step out there and you have these intense conversations with people and real conversations, look into people's eyes and have this conversation, that sort of creates a very strong basis, I feel. So sort of coming back to this question, so I knew that we'll keep diverging into all these topics. Okay, so like I said, this whole magazine became my starting point.
Yeah, so I want to know your mother connection.
So that's how it started. So with this magazine, every month 5 of us would make anywhere between 15 to 20,000 rupees.
Okay? Every month. Man, I'm envious of your early on days.
Yeah. And here's how we would spend it. So this was the most interesting bit. Okay. So this money was supposed to go into our computer science club for the club related activities.
Okay.
But we 5 are the founders of the club. Okay. So we could just do whatever we wanted. The college had no idea that we were actually making money out of this. Okay, they had no clue, right?
So there was nobody supervising, or there was no accounting system happening here?
No, nothing whatsoever. We were the ones who were managing the accounts.
Right. And there was no accountability with anybody else. That's what I was asking.
There was no accountability. We'll come to that. That was a very interesting one. Okay, so anyway, what happened was, so every week we would meet up and we would split the money based on how much work we did in generating ads. Okay. So if I traveled, I spent 5 hours. So ours was an hourly billing system.
Okay.
Anybody in the college can come and work and get ads.
Oh, it was open enterprise for anybody.
Open enterprise for anyone. Okay.
Not bad, okay.
Yeah. So if you come and you work and you generate ads, okay, doesn't matter if you generate 1 ad or 10 ads, but if you'll be compensated for it. And we had a very simple thing that end of the week, Saturday, we'll just go and blow up maybe $4,000-5,000 at a pub, okay, and just have a blast. So we became very popular in college, okay. There's a bunch of guys who have deep pockets, surprisingly,
right?
But a bunch of nerds, okay. And somehow they have money. right? And they just call people to pubs and then you have a good time,
They're
right?
having a lifestyle.
Exactly, an interesting lifestyle, and we would all get little money in our pockets, like So I used to go home with like 2-3 thousand, just back in 90s, man.
Right, that's a lot of
That's
money.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think just for context, during that time, I think somebody who earns, like they had to work an entire month to earn maybe
to
five
earn that.
grands.
Exactly.
Right. That's a lot of money, right?
So it was a lot of money, okay.
Yeah.
And my mom, always had this, thing to, we had a fairly difficult upbringing, okay. So
Why do you say that?
I think we, see, if you go back to my childhood, right, the house that I was born in was like maybe half this room size,
Right.
okay, and we literally had to pull the cot up to the ceiling with a rope, okay, otherwise there's no space for anyone to.
Okay,
There was
okay.
no electricity, okay, the toilets were outside,
Right.
okay, and it was a very difficult environment. And both mom and dad's background came from that sort of, I would say dad's background was literally extreme poverty, okay, from where he came, right? And for him to migrate to Bangalore and sort of start a life and stuff like that, it was very hard. And the place that we were staying at that time, was this colony, which gave us a really good house. Okay, but dad's pay didn't really cover much. Mom was working in school, so we had a decent upbringing. I wouldn't say like really bad or whatever, but luxuries were definitely not
In the
something
list.
that is in the list of things, right?
Right.
So to be able to see like 2-3 thousand rupees
Right.
coming in, I would say that would have been like, literally my dad's salary at that
Right,
time.
right. Absolutely. Yeah, I can
Right?
understand. Yeah.
And mom was like, how are you doing this? Right.
Right.
So I said, look, mom.
She
there's
got very
this-
concerned about the son.
Exactly. Okay. I said, look, we have this computer and we do this printing stuff. Okay. And we do this desktop publishing. That's how we do it. Her mind immediately started, and she said, okay, what would it do? What would it cost to buy a computer and do something? It'll help me in my education as well. So we sat together and we figured it out. At that time, a computer would cost about 45,000-50,000 rupees.
Okay.
It was an expensive investment.
Right.
So we got a 486, and I knew how to assemble computers. So
You were nerdy from the beginning.
yeah. So all of us were like in this group, right? So we all friends got together and we bought the computer parts and stuff like that. And yeah, mom got a loan from the bank or whatever. And then we somehow cobbled together that 45,000 bucks. And we got this desktop computer.
Okay.
Mom had ulterior motives, obviously. She was working in school,
Right.
okay, in this school in Bangalore. And she could get orders for like things like, the diary, the school diary,
Right.
pamphlets and all sorts of. The school had a budget for printing.
Right.
Okay. She immediately told the principal that, look, my son has this small setup, if you want, you can give him this work.
Yeah.
So that's how I started.
Nice.
So
So
she was my first business partner.
That's amazing story, man. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know that,
Yeah.
you started off with your mom. And so you never had an inclination to be an employee or a 9 to 5 guy.
Of course I had, yeah. I
You
mean,
did?
I wouldn't, I mean, if you think about it, I don't think anyone is sort of, at least back then, today we have so much of literature about being entrepreneurs and it's like a really cool thing, okay?
Right.
Back then, when you say entrepreneur, it means like no one gave you a job. Okay? Unemployment.
Right. Like oh, the poor guy is really struggling, he's
Yeah.
going through, he didn't get a job. Like something
Exactly.
like that.
Okay, somebody in the house will say, oh, so sad. No one, he never got job anywhere. No government job, no private job. He has to do something on his own. So it is a very sad situation, right? That's how it was termed.
Now we can look back and label it as entrepreneurship, but you're saying it was like a...
No, it was unemployment. Exactly what it was. So,
Okay. No, but then on a serious note,
Yeah.
since you saw a lot of money early on, didn't it make sense to you that, hey, this is the path that makes sense for me to pursue rather than going for a conventional job approach?
See, see the money part of it was there, okay, but when you're young in your like early 20s, right? You don't really think, at least me personally, at that time, the narrative around the environment that I grew up in didn't really, look at money from that perspective. Okay, I never thought about money as a means to do anything. Okay, it was mostly what I liked to do and what I wanted to do, what I enjoyed doing. Those were some of the things that really attracted me. Okay, I do see a lot of difference today. It's like driven by wants, how much I'm going to earn, and
Right.
things like that really dictate a lot. But back then, at least personally for me, it did not. And then, of course, I still had all the aspirations. Okay. The way I would term it is I was so confused. You might think that I had things all figured out. I was the most clueless guy you can ever imagine. Okay.
Why is that?
So when I was growing up, I always thought that I'll become an astrophysicist and an astronomer. I was fascinated by astronomy.
Okay.
Science and astronomy held a very close, connection, in my heart. So I used to write articles, I used to read books and stuff like that. Everything related to astrophysics and astronomy. And I thought that that's the career I needed.
And what caused or what influenced you to have an inclination towards that subject? Like, were you reading up quite early about this, or you were watching something?
Yeah, so obviously I grew up watching Star Trek. Star Trek was like my everything. All my hopes and aspirations were all around space and science fiction, and so even my early books and stuff like that I used to read was all centered around science fiction and everything to do with the stars. Massive, that imagination that used to really fascinate me. I thought that is my career, right?
Right.
And then incidentally, I knew an astrophysicist at that time. He was one of the members in our church. He was a director of Indian Institute of Astrophysics.
Okay.
And I remember this incident. I went and spoke to that church pastor and I said, I need to meet him. Okay. I need to really understand how to become an astrophysicist. This was, I think I was in 9th or 10th
That's nice.
standard.
You were very clear with your approach, at least,
Yeah.
It makes sense to go and ask somebody who's in that line of work.
Exactly.
Otherwise we go and ask any uncle, maybe he could be a butcher. Like, oh, how do I really?
Exactly. So I remember walking, to their house with this priest, and there was this Bajaj Chetak scooter parked outside their house. Went inside, sat down, and then this uncle was very pleased. This young kid has come to ask, and then he was very he said, okay, you know what? I have traveled to all the continents on the earth, including Antarctica. So I met a person who's actually been to Antarctica back then.
Wow,
okay. I would say like late 80s, right? Fascinating guy, and he knew everything there is about physics and mathematics, and he gave me a full rundown. He said, son, you need to be good in physics, your math should be top of the line. So he asked me, so how are your scores in math? I was like pretty embarrassed. I was like, not bad. Physics and science, okay, right? And then I remember that auntie coming and going, oh, so you want to become an astrophysicist like my husband? I said, yes. Listen, you can do all this, you can travel to all the continents, but you see that Bajaj Chetak scooter parked, that's all you will get.
Oh my God. That's a dream killer, man.
I know. Okay. And I was like, wow, okay, so fine. You can either have like an interesting life and travel and do all this, but at the end of the day, you will come home and ride a Bajaj Chetak scooter and
That
park.
is tragic, man. Okay.
I know, so it was like, I'm like thinking deeply, okay. But I was very focused. I wanted to do it and all that.
Right.
But when you get into college and by the end of it, reality hits you. And I knew that I was not cut out for that kind of heavy science, heavy lifting in science, man. It is not for me, okay. I'm not good at that at all. And it really hit me when I was sitting and writing my entrance test for MSc in physics, okay. Some college, I don't remember what. I was sitting and writing the entrance exam. And midway, I just got up and walked out. I was like, this is not me.
This is not what I want to do.
This is not what I want to do. And this was after I finished my, degree in computer science. Scored really low, got like a second class, like 57% or something like that. Completely dejected, okay, because you've scored really bad. Your scores don't really reflect who you are. And then I said, okay, maybe I'll do my IIM. Maybe management is what I need to do. Tried that, went for CAT training, flunked so badly in that. Thought maybe I'll do advertising, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. Absolute confusion, okay, in terms of what I wanted to do. There was no clarity at all. I took that 1 year break, okay, after my degree. That actually really helped me a lot to sort of focus.
So how did you express this to your mother or your father that you intend to take 1 year break? Like, knowing conventional Indian families, taking a break in itself is like a big no. So how did you, how was that conversation like?
That's interesting. Okay. Now thinking back, I have no idea. I think my folks were as clueless as I was. Okay. And I think at that time, parenting, the style of parenting was not something so hands-on. Okay. I mean, they were concerned, but I never for once felt pressure that the day you finish your college degree, You either are applying for a college and you're starting off, or you're applying for a job, and there is nothing called a break, right? Today we have that. Back then, for whatever reason, my folks, and even I remember even some of my colleagues and my friends around me, we never had any of that pressure. Okay, none of our parents came and said, I think you really need to figure this stuff out. I don't want you to waste even 1-2 months. No. So I got a break at that 1 year, and I was still trying to figure out what to do. I remember my dad was little concerned, but he was like, you take your time, but I want you to do your further studies. I don't care what you do, but do some further studies. I said, okay, I'll think about it. But I took, so those days I used to sleep, get up at like 11:30 every day, listen to music, go meet my friends, okay, hang out. And that was it. I just did that. Evening, my CAT course used to start. I used to go and study there and do some like stuff. But that's all, okay. For 6 months, I just did that. I just wasted my time. But that, I think, was the best time for me, okay.
Yeah, so just to connect the dots, I was told that you were part of a music band.
Oh my goodness.
Could you please tell us more about that?
Yeah, it all started during that time.
Okay. Was it during that break time?
Yes, during that break time.
Okay.
Okay. So, and, it was actually during that break time. Yes. After college. So, there was another neighbor of mine, okay, my friend, a good friend of mine. So we used to hang out, and music became like a huge thing. So he was like learning classical guitar, and I was like, learning to play the guitar as well. And and we used to go hang out, and he had a band. And one day, one of their vocalists dropped out. Okay, they had a female vocalist, and she was not available for a concert. So I ended up being there, and they said, "Hey, you can sing a little bit, no? Come on, just give it a
your
shot."
voice, yeah.
Yeah. So I just went and just sang, and then it actually was like, "Oh, okay, fine." But look, there's a difference when you have a female vocalist, okay, and then you have somebody like me, okay. Forget about the voice, okay. There's something called stage presence and look in a rock band, okay. And I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like 1 there, or minus, okay. So definitely not in that category whatsoever.
I was told that you had long hair then.
I did, man.
You
I
did? So
Well,
you had the looks of the band member.
dude, that long hair thing was because I came from Bangalore Military School, okay? Right?
Okay, there is a story in there
There
too.
is a story there also, right?
Right.
Because I used to go for a haircut literally every week. In fact, I was so bad that the barber, my neighborhood barber, swore never to cut my hair. He said, like, if you walk out of my barber shop looking like this, I'll not get business, man. Don't come back here, okay? It was that bad. So when I left in 10th standard, when I left military school,
Right.
I didn't cut my hair for like 2 years. I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a rebel. Okay. So I had like long hair and so yeah, it started with that. So I generally would, keep my hair long during those days.
Interesting.
So yeah, I had that phase of rock star, went on stage, Indian Institute of Science. They had a competition back then.
What was your band's name?
It was called Angel Dust.
Whose idea was that?
Oh, they were a very popular band, by the way, back then. Yeah. But I'm one of those lesser known vocalists in their literature. Okay, they will not address me as their, vocalist. I was one of the session musicians, just like happened to be there, and that's it.
The band still exists?
The members are still there, man. Okay, so my friend, he's moved to Australia. He was the bassist, so he's there. And then Christopher Avinash, so he's the guitarist and he's still there. He has a studio here. He's very active in the music scene.
That's interesting.
So we keep meeting now and then. Okay. Now we are like middle-aged, men trying to be like rock stars. Doesn't really suit, but whatever. But yeah, Bangalore is a interesting place that way.
So fast forwarding from that phase to current times. So my audience still doesn't know what exactly do you do. So so what is that you do when people ask you, what is your current capacity? You're actually wearing multiple hats. I understand. So where are you focused on and what are you doing?
Yeah, so my main if you say like like a day job, what I do is we have a software services firm called Trellisys. We started that back in 2000. It was all after this magazine stuff and all of that, right?
Right.
We started the company. The second company we started lasted for maybe about a year, and then we split that company up. It was like a completely we can run a podcast only on that. Okay, it was like a strange time. But once that was done, me and in fact that magazine that we were running, three of us from that actually were part of the company that we founded.
Oh, wow. So that's a long association you guys have had.
Yeah. So
Okay,
Rohit, my co-founder with me, who's been with me till now, was my associate editor. So we both used to work together on the magazine.
Oh, that's a wonderful long-term collab, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've known each other since we were kids. Okay.
Right.
So we have a very, so that's one thing very interesting, right? So we started after we, left college. Rohit went and started working at a software company. I would go out on a limb and say he's probably one of the smartest humans I have known. Okay. He's a brilliant mind. Okay. And even back then, he was this guy who would embarrass all of us in computer science class. Okay. Because his projects used to be top notch and the rest of us were mere mortals. Okay. And this guy was extremely brainy, very intelligent, very high IQ, math, logic, and all of that stuff. A very unique mind. And we always knew that if I associate with him, that something will happen.
It'll rub off.
Yeah, it will rub off. Okay. And then he also had the same idea, I think, okay, about me, because I had this way of spinning stories and convincing, and I had this other side to it. And, so we both always knew that somehow we will
Make this work.
Right? And that's kind of how we started. So Trellisys is the company that we started after that first 2 years of that old company that we had which broke off. So we decided, okay, we'll do something in the software side, right? So that's how Trellisys was born. Basically the same computer that I had bought when I was in college.
Yeah.
And Rohit's computer and few other people that we had, we all came together. We were 5 of us when we founded that company.
Right.
And the ideology of that company was very simple. Okay, we said, let's put all our computers in one room. And I didn't have a job back then. So I said, look guys, you pay me, I just need 5,000 rupees every month. No, it's not 5,000 also, 3,000 or 4,000 rupees every month. Okay, because I had a bike, I had to pay an EMI. So I said, I just need money for my bike's EMI, that is some 2,000 rupees a month, and maybe another 3,000 rupees for my monthly expenses. And you guys are all working in other companies, okay, earning a ton of money, okay. Put 5,000 rupees for the next 1 year, right? And let's see what we can do. And I'm happy to run this. So I became the first full-time director in the company.
Okay.
All the others were working somewhere else and they basically funded. And we had one employee. Okay. And that's how Trellisys started. So the first few months, all we did was we built a website for this company, Trellisys. We built a website.
For their own company.
For the own company. And when somebody asks, when we would go and just try and sell website services, they ask do you guys know how to do it? We'll say, yes. Have you built a website? Yes, we have. Which one? Our own website. Take a look at this. Okay, so that's how we started off.
Oh, what a great start. Okay.
Right. And yeah, so first 6 months, there was no business. Okay. There was nothing. We were just a bunch of kids trying to I was 21.
So were you the person who was driving business or business development? Were you the one who's doing the talking bit?
Yeah. So I used to go and meet clients and customers and it was not very structured. Okay. So back then there was no internet. There was nothing. Okay.
Right.
We'd had internet, but we didn't, we had those old dial-ups and stuff like that.
Right.
Nobody really wanted a website. No one understood what it was and stuff like that. But that's when Anil, who's our other co-founder, he joined us. And then by then, all the rest left. Okay, they were like, this is not working out, guys, and stuff like that. So Anil came in and he we bought over all the shares from the other.
There are others, okay.
The others. And then at the end, there were only 3 of us left. So it was me, Rohit, and Anil. So we 3 co-founded the company.
Wonderful.
What's interesting was I would take care of business development and stuff like that. Rohit was a technical mind, and Anil was more on the finance and operations side of it. So it was like I was very lucky to have found individuals who shared the same thought process and with very complementary skills.
Right. Yeah. Right? I think that's a very rare combination to get. All 3 with unique skill sets which complement the business goals in a way. Right?
Very important, right? And back then I remember everyone used to tell, like, don't do business with others, man. Do it by yourself. I mean, this is a very Indian mindset where you
Yeah,
say, like,
we still hear that.
you
Yeah.
hear that, right?
Right.
And it's the worst advice you can give anybody. Okay, it's like, if you want to do business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you don't have good co-founders, you're as good as like gone. Okay, you cannot do everything by yourself.
Right.
It is a team sport. Entrepreneurship is a team sport, right? And I wholeheartedly believe that, that's kind of how you should approach it. So yeah, Trellisys is what we started in 2000. This is our 22nd year of operation.
Wow.
So we've been around for a really, really long time. Our USP is really simple. What we do is we hire young engineers and we train them to be good software engineers. Now, something like that is easier said than done, okay? Because our education system doesn't really teach engineers how to, be good software engineers. I mean, no institute teaches you that. And the only way you can become a good software engineer is to be able to work with other good software engineers.
Right.
The experience is the only thing that will get you to where you want to be.
Right.
So we have, kind of like a 6 months to 1 year boot camp, okay, where we hire fresh minds from institutes like NIT, and we just go to colleges and we hire them. Every year we would hire, like, 5 students we would hire, all right?
Right.
And then we would sort of train them. Over the next few years, they become like these really good, well-rounded engineers. Then we take this team and then we go after startups and technology companies outside.
And deploy them there.
Yeah, we sort of deploy them. Now, the way we deploy is kind of like, it's not like body shopping, okay? Body shopping is like, you basically just, hire engineers from some other company for your product. We are slightly little different, okay? We go to, it's like founders of companies who would come to us and they would say, look, we have this product idea and we want to bring it to fruition. Can your team help us make that happen?
Okay.
So we would set up like core teams of, like, a UI UX person, somebody in the, product lead, like a core team. Almost like, instead of you going out there and hiring your own technology team, it's almost like a CTO on hire, you could say.
Okay.
Right? And that's kind of how you would start. And we would scale along with the company. So typically when we work with companies, minimum is 4 to 5 years engagements we'll have.
Right, right.
We literally live and breathe this company and, like, sort of be part of the whole product life cycle. So in 22 years, we worked with tons of these organizations. Many don't survive today.
Right.
Okay, because 9 out of 10 companies don't see the light of day in the next 4 or 5 years. They don't. So we used to tie our fortunes with the ups and downs of these companies. So our business model is, sometimes we invest in these companies. Partly we invest, or we take like some sort of, equity in them, right? And when these companies raise funding, we sort of divest. And so that's kind of the model that we have. It's almost like an incubator, you could say.
Right.
So many times VCs or investors would recommend us and they would say, like, look, if you want some help in this specific area, go to these guys, and kind of how we.
So I think you have built a credibility in the industry also with your 22 years in that space.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of leverage that you get with the contacts in that space also, in a way.
Absolutely. I think, that once you reach the kind of level that we are in, and it's not easy, it takes a lot of effort. But then we get to a point where you've built enough goodwill, among a small community.
Right.
And then you continuously get some bit of work. So I would say for us, the biggest challenge is in hiring and retaining talent. So many of our engineers have been with us for like 15 years, 10 years, which is unheard of in the industry.
Right. So that speaks a lot about how the culture is actually, and how people feel, associated with your company. So that's a really good thing. Coming back to what you currently are actively involved in. So what's your current focus and what's the company's name?
Yeah, so the current one is, the company is called Fandefi. It's not even a company, I would say. Like, it's more like a product idea. It's like a concept that we are working on, and it is in the NFT, Web3, crypto, sort of space. And in Trellisys, every few decades, like in every decade, we sort of go through this transformation, okay, where you can actually sense the technology moving in a particular direction. We saw that in 2000 when we formed the company. We knew that the web would be like something spectacular, and we jumped into that. And then in 2010, we knew that mobile is going to be massive. We jumped into that, okay. And then now in the last 2 years, we've been seeing this huge trend towards a more decentralized sort of an environment. It is completely different from anything I've ever seen in my 2-decade long career in this space.
So I remember, actually catching up with you 2 years ago, and this was a very brief conversation. So, and I happened to see you at our daughter's school because our kids go to the same school, and then I said, "Hey, so what's up with you, man? What are you working on?" And you told me then, "Yeah, I'm really in the crypto world, and I'm really reading about everything crypto." So I was like, okay, what's crypto? And I just okay, it was like a passing comment or thought. That was 2 years ago, and here we are today. And you're like really into a technology which is the next big thing. You've been always keeping an eye on the ball, where the trends are going, where the technology is heading. So that's kind of really interesting, man.
Yeah, I think if you're in the tech space, right, predicting how the technology will evolve is like a skill that you have to really hone in on, because by the time you realize it, see, for instance, today an engineer with the kind of skills that you need in Web3 and crypto, is one of the most sought after skill sets. You don't have people in this space, and and companies are paying a premium to get access to these sort of people, and that's primarily what mine and Rohit's job is. Look a little bit in the future, and then you decide, okay, which is the area that you need to sort of invest in, and then we take people and we put them into that, and we say, like, what, spend the next 6 months figuring this thing out, right? And then you have the raw materials to sort of even attempt to do something in that space,
right? And you can unleash these guys out there in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
So coming back to NFT.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like when I first saw some visuals of NFT, it felt like you are selling something which is like a digital media, which is like a glorified image or a I can just right click an image and save it.
Yeah.
And why is this becoming such a big deal? And so what is this NFT?
Okay, so I can give you a I think it's one of the most difficult tasks that I have, is like trying to explain what an NFT is from multiple levels, right?
Right.
Okay, so I've tried to come up with a simple framework, okay, of how to explain what an NFT is. So think about ownership, right? If you say that you own something, let's say it's a house or a piece of land, right? The way you can own a physical object or a physical entity is, somebody has to give you the rights to that ownership. Okay, one is possession. So if let's say I own a phone, I'm in possession of this physical object, so I obviously own it, and that's it. Or if it's a land, piece of land, a parcel of land, then there's like a government authority, which is a notary, or it's like a registrar of lands, who gives you this certificate and says you own it, right? And that's pretty much how human civilization has always been, but we've been in the digital sphere for like 3-4 decades now, but we've never had a concept of digital ownership. Okay. So if you think about it, what does it mean to digitally own something, right? Let's say you own a website. Okay, do you really own the website? Well, not really. If you think about it, it's a server that's probably on somebody else's infrastructure,
right?
And then you're paying some monthly rent
to maintain that. So do you really own the website? I don't know. If that company which is hosting decides that we don't want to renew you, you lost your ownership. Right.
That's it. The true digital ownership, probably the first thing that you could own is probably your domain name, right? So if you think about it, any domain name that you have,
what is the domain? Just for like
a domain name would be like www.myname.com, right? Or arunbenty.com. If that's a domain name, I can go to, say, GoDaddy or one of these websites, and then I buy the domain name. Okay, I have to pay a rental fee to the ICANN, which is like an organization that sort of controls how domain names are distributed, right? So if I register my domain name, nobody else can capture that unless I give it away.
Okay, it's like almost like copyright.
Not copyright also. Like, say, for instance, I could have there are some laws wherein you can't squat on somebody's domain. Like I can't have a Nike.com if I don't own it. Okay. So if you notice that when you get into the digital space, right, there are a lot of these sort of sticky subjects where like, okay, who controls it? Like, who owns the domain name? So for instance, you can, like, I'll give you a simple example. Tesla, right? You know how much he paid money to get Tesla.com because somebody else owned the...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the guy just like registered it like a few years ago, like, and then he just, he owns the name now. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't go and tell him like, please sell me, give me, or you can't file a copyright suit and say like, no, that domain name is mine. You can't do that. You have to pay him. You have to. So if you look at true digital ownership, the domain name was like the first asset, you could say, that you own. You can literally make a lot of money. There are many people who have made millions selling domain names.
Domain names, yeah. I think that's domain flipping and things like that.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So domain flipping is where this whole digital asset concept really was born, and that was it. Okay. The reason why it was possible is because no one single entity, country, or company controls the internet or domain name spaces. They don't control it. Right? It's controlled by the ICANN. It's an organization. It's a not-for-profit organization, and that's how it was structured. So the internet and the web was born from this whole decentralized, concept. But in the last, if you look at like the last 10, 15 years, that whole concept has been flipped now. Today, the internet or the web is primarily controlled by those top 3 companies. You have Facebook, you have Apple, you have Google. Okay, these are the companies that control, your homepage is Google basically. The browser that you use is Chrome. Okay,
Right.
That's not how the web was born. Okay, it was very decentralized. So we've had this concept of like this shift that's happening now, where you have these behemoths that are controlling the technology space, and now there's like this clamor to go more decentralized. Okay, so now there's this concept of who owns stuff. Like, let's say you
So
post
why
something.
is this need for decentralization? Like why suddenly this wake up call towards decentralization?
So I think there
We
are...
are happy with the Apples and the Googles and the
Yeah.
Facebooks.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Okay, so I wouldn't say that there is a clamor for it. I would say that there is a growing section of technologists who are moving more towards this concept of privacy and censorship resistance. Okay, this was not a big deal say 5-6 years ago. It was not. But today, if you look at it, everything that you do, digital is becoming a very important aspect of our lives.
Right.
Okay. People keep talking about this metaverse and stuff like that, right? I mean, basically, what I mean to say is like, when you say digital, what does it mean? It means the photographs that are in your phone are worth something to you. Okay. They hold some memory. Previously, it used to be these photos that you print and you keep it physically. Today, it's all digital. It is stored in your Google Cloud, for instance. That's a digital space.
Right.
If someone asks you, okay, how valuable is that? I mean, it's like, yeah, of course it is valuable. There is some, if I lose it, I'm going to feel bad about it.
Yeah. There's a associated emotional cost
to it, right? So suddenly now that digital asset has some emotional value, and that's how you derive value from it, right? If you look at everything that's digital, it's growing up in value. The physical aspects are going down in value, right? And the digital is becoming more. And then if you look at all the companies that control this digital ecosystem, they're all extremely centralized. So Facebook controls all your friends and families like connections. They control it. Okay. Instagram controls one part of it. WhatsApp, all of them control it. Now, slowly, people are asking questions like, hey, this is becoming valuable. And tomorrow something happens. I'm like, let's say for some reason, I die and then I can't reset my Google password. Who's going to help me? Can I apply for a death certificate and say, please reset it? Google is not going to care who I am.
Right.
So this concept of digital ownership, maybe today it looks frivolous, but it's becoming more and more pertinent. It's becoming more and more, in terms of how we value a digital asset. So there's an entire ecosystem of technologists now who are saying the time is coming where people need to have like more agency in owning a digital asset.
Okay.
Okay. That is easier said than done. Okay.
Right.
It's such a complex ecosystem that the change is not going to happen overnight. But this is a whole bunch of things that have to change from the ground up. Okay. It's about controlling the infrastructure. The internet infrastructure is decentralized to a certain extent. Okay. Like you can't control like which server has what or whatever. I mean there's a certain you can't say that one specific company owns the internet.
Right. Yeah. I think it is to a large extent decentralized in nature. In a way.
It is decentralized
Right,
in nature, right? But access to it is not. Okay, today governments control access. So I can in Ukraine you can put off the internet, but then you have Elon Musk who launches these satellites and say like, here you go,
yeah.
you can access it. So internet access is literally a fundamental right today. Okay, so we are going into that space. So NFTs is a technology concept which gives people some frameworks to have digital ownership. That's it. Okay. You could say it's like a certificate, okay, that is authorized by a blockchain, right?
It's another topic altogether.
It's another topic altogether. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like multiple layers. If you look at it, such a complex topic, right? But to understand why, what do you mean by it? And then when people say right click and copy and stuff like that, yes, of course, but there is this idea that a digital asset has some value. And as we keep going into this digital realm, that value will start becoming more and more, it'll
enhance
more,
its value. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So we need a concept of digital ownership, and NFTs gives you that option, right? That's kind of how I would put it. And the blockchain and NFTs is not controlled by anyone. No one can take it away from you, right? You own it. It's not stored on some central server. The file is not there. It's basically a pointer to a file, you could say. Okay. So we can get into more technical discussions about what an NFT is. Okay. But it's a,
I think it will be outside of the scope of this conversation. Yeah, but coming back to NFTs, there seems to be a massive opportunity right now in that space. Earlier, we had not heard of so much of a creator economy.
Yes.
Okay, and now there is a whole focus wherein there are artists. There are there could be somebody who is painting something, or there could be an artist producing some kind of music. It really sends signals to the world in a completely new way, where you can discover an artist and you can really support them, and they get compensated extremely well. Okay, so could you speak a little about that opportunity and what's emerging there?
Yeah, absolutely. So
and your company is involved in a space like that, right, where you're actually helping artists?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fandefi is you could say is like it's a launch pad or like a crowdfunding platform, okay, for anyone in the creative field to sort of set up a base and start selling your artwork or any sort of creative medium that you have. Because the minute you talk about digital ownership, right, a digital asset that you can own, suddenly now there's a meaningful monetization for that, right? So all this while, if you look at how you can monetize your creative output, let's say you're a podcaster or you have a YouTube channel or whatever, you're depending on a centralized platform like say YouTube to get you the audience. Okay, so they bring you the audience, and that's the platform, and then you put you create your content and you put it out there, and then you get paid through ad revenue. Okay, that's kind of how the model works right now.
Right.
And the ad revenue driven model has been really bad for human society. That's my personal.
Why?
Yeah, there are many reasons for that. Okay, and if you look at how algorithms sort of function, this may not be consciously done, but this is kind of the studies are showing.
It's by design, I think.
It's by design. Okay, so a company like Facebook or say Google, if you take, these are the two primary companies that are driving this behavior. The more attention you can get from your audience, the more money you make. It's as simple. These are private companies which are which have to cater to their shareholders and stockholders. That's it. Okay, so that's their objective. So if I spend more time on Facebook, Facebook makes more money.
Right.
It's a very simple concept. So how do you get attention? Well, you use a lot of persuasive design, okay? And this is like a topic that's like over 2 decades old. How do you use design and UI UX principles to grab somebody's attention? Whether it's a like button or whether it's the fact that when you're watching YouTube, okay, this is like such an interesting aspect. If you watch a YouTube, they have those shorts, right?
Right.
So you see the first video.
Correct.
Okay. You don't even need to swipe up. It swipes up automatically and plays the second video. Why is that?
It auto-populates, right? The next
Yeah, it just keeps showing you, right, the next video, right? Now, what YouTube is doing, or what YouTube's algorithm is doing, is like it's studying your behavior, and it knows that instead of you swiping and exercising that,
That
control,
gesture.
that gesture to move up, I'll do it for you, which means you will watch the next video because I want you to watch the next video, right? And then if I do swipe the video before watching it, it knows what I like and what I don't like. So it knows what it needs to do to,
So
fill
it's like machine learning in play, right? It's just
Exactly.
recognizing what's your
Exactly.
behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what is the behavior? What is the algorithm trying to do? The algorithm is basically saying it's using your attention as raw material. Okay. It's using your attention as a means to drive more views so that it can serve ads. It doesn't want you to, the algorithm is not designed to help you learn better, or it's not that. There is an ad, it needs eyeballs. So it is optimized to get you that. That's it.
Wow, right.
Right? And now when you're constructing it in that very simple framework, you see what it does to society. Okay. So let's say I'm somebody with a particular type of ideology, right? Let's say I'm more left leaning, right? Now when I do that, I will constantly see content that is left leaning.
Right.
Okay. So I go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the well, that
Right,
side.
right.
Okay. If I'm right, I go deeper into the right. So what studies are showing today is that platforms, typically the algorithm is designed in such a way where it pushes people to the edges. Okay. So
Takes them to the extremes.
Okay. So if you're more right wing, you want to see more extreme right wing. It will show you more, and you can actually literally see this. Okay. Just create a new browser instance, clear out all your cookies, and open YouTube. You'll see a certain type of content there.
Right.
And then if you keep seeing certain types of content, it will program itself to show you only that.
Right.
Then if you
That's
go to-
why the default homepage of every user's YouTube will be extremely different from one to another.
Absolutely.
Right. Based on what they have, what's their browsing history or what they've been searching for.
Exactly.
Right.
And this goes for everything. Okay. So if you look at, it's programmed to show you certain types of stuff. If you look at Instagram, it shows you only like positive messages. If you go to Twitter, it shows you very antagonizing content in terms of it really, and unknowingly or knowingly, technology is sort of, disrupting society. So we're seeing it affect elections. It's seeing it affect, personal relationships.
Yeah.
And I am very certain that in the next 15, 20 years, there'll be entire documentaries that equate social media and the technology, and with things like, say, smoking and the dangers of smoking, right? If you remember in the 60s, we used to have ads where doctors would promote certain types of cigarettes.
Yes,
Okay.
I've read about that actually. Yeah, it was supposed to be like a healthy thing to do, nothing to worry. You could
Exactly.
You could you can just safely
Exactly.
consume it. Or
Safely. Yeah.
Right.
And today we know where it is. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that the next 2 or 3 generations from now, they will look back and say, you know what, our grandparents used to this thing called social media. Oh my goodness, I'm pretty sure that's how it is going to be viewed.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons it's driving this whole decentralized ecosystem. And it's mostly from engineers who have been in neck deep in this.
these techs.
This
Space.
tech environment. Okay. And it is very demotivating. Okay. When you look at what it can do to society. Right. And companies today like Facebook are dealing with very difficult questions. And the difficult questions are like things like censorship, for instance. Okay. What do you censor? Right. Do you make some decisions based on, like, somebody's writing about like a particular topic, let's say vaccination, and they're like anti-vax. Okay. Do you stop it? Do you let open freedom of speech? Do you let people say what they want? how do you make a decision like that?
That's a tough one. Yeah.
It's a very, very tough question. But then it's not like, companies have not dealt with this. Media companies like, newspapers and other media organizations have dealt with it. But there you have a structure for creating content. Today you're dealing with like some guy who's just like putting up like a YouTube channel, and then you can talk and say whatever you want.
Right.
So,
So you were telling about the decentralization space emerging, and also how the centralization is driven by ads.
yes.
And like how you are against that idea, right? Like because the narrative is driven by the influencers of those companies who are funding them.
Exactly.
Right.
I think if you look at the business model, an ad-based business model is not incentivized to get the best, what do you call, output.
Right.
Okay. So the outcomes are not, aligned. Right. And that's one of the reasons why, most of these like sort of ad-driven business models are not finding favor among the audience. And that's one of the reasons why these sort of Web3 technologies and NFTs, which gives users ownership of everything, right? We're still in very, very early stages, Manoj, but it's a step in that direction,
Right.
I would say. Okay, we're still very far from that.
Okay, I want to shift gears because otherwise we will still not touch upon some of the other topics. So how can an artist really turn this into, to their own advantage? Okay, now that we have identified there is opportunity there is so much happening. How can an artist, let's say somebody who doesn't understand all these technological jargons, and he's just purely into his or her art, like he could be a singer, a musician, or somebody like that. So can you guide them, or what are the first steps they should actually explore?
So, if you just remove the whole technology aspect of everything, right? It's still the same. You need to still follow the same guidelines. Okay. So the internet and the web sort of gives you access to a global audience, right? You have a message. So let's say let's take the podcast itself as an example, right? You have a certain content, and then you have, you want an audience, right? And the audience is out there. The web, you need to find that audience basically, right? And then if you use platforms like, you still have to use platforms like say Google, Facebook, Instagram, all of these platforms gives you access to reach out to these audiences. Right. The difference is you still need to follow the same methodology to reach your audience. But when you acquire this audience, okay, like they give you your email or they subscribe to you and stuff like what the Web3 ecosystem and what Fandefi lets you do is sort of get ownership of that audience. And what do you mean by ownership? Essentially, it's like, let's say as a podcast, you release an NFT, right? And, for everyone who comes and listens to your NFT, you give them an NFT. Listens to this podcast, you give them an NFT. Let's say it's a participation token.
Okay.
Right? So let's say I own 5 of your NFTs because I listen to 5 of your podcasts, right?
So you've earned 5 tokens of those.
I've owned some tokens, right? Now, the power of something like that is that you're able to measure, who has, really participated in your, in your economy. Now, you could say, hey, I can do the same thing by having a counter on my website that says, like, you, Arun, you came and listened to 5 of my podcasts, so I'm going to give you 5 points. Me as Arun, I can say, fine, Manoj, that's great. You're giving me 5 points or 5 stars on your website because, I'm listening to it. But you control it. I don't own those 5 stars, right? What NFTs gives you is the ability to give ownership back to the people who are listening to your podcast by giving them a certificate that can be traded. It can be utilized for all sorts of things. You could say it's kind of like a loyalty card.
Okay.
For being loyal to your content, right?
Okay.
You own the ownership of your content. I own the ownership of participating in you. Okay.
So it's like you having some equity in the artist.
Yes.
Okay. And so if the artist were to really grow big, let's say we scale up 100x, 1000x, there is a proportional benefit to the fans also.
Yeah, to the fans as well. So with Fandefi, what we have done specifically, we've taken this whole concept of ownership to the next level, which is you can fund this artist or this creative, creator, this, whoever. It could be a podcast, it could be like a musician, it could be an artist, it could be anybody. You can participate in their growth right from early stages, right?
Okay.
Now, this is kind of how like companies are also formed, right? So you get some sort of a funding, right? Let's say when we started Trellisys, internally, my friends, we put in 50,000 and we funded it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how it was. It was 5,000 rupees a month. That was the funding concept. And we all know today that funding is a very difficult thing. You can't go to a bank, they ask you for collateral. Okay. You can't go to an investor. You need to be $1 million business before someone invests in you. What about all the rest of the entire, that entire stretch? Okay.
Right.
So there's a massive funding gap all over the world. Okay, there is money, but it needs to be put to work, right? And technologies like NFTs and what Fandefi is also trying to do is trying to put that money to work in more efficient ways.
Understood.
Okay, and crypto gives you that efficiency, and NFTs gives you like a basic framework to put some of this money to work for creative enterprises. Okay, now you could say that, hey, you know what, I'm going to invest in an artist. What if the artist doesn't perform? Okay, or they don't live up to their expectations.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the answer to a lot of this is, goes back to like sort of the nature of how you invest, right? So you're investing, if you put your money in like say gold or in say property or something, it grows at a certain value, right? Or you put your money in your bank, you get some interest and it grows at a certain value. That's one way of investing. The other way of investing is like to go and gamble it in a horse race, right? That's purely luck, okay?
Right.
Or you buy a lottery, okay? That's another way of doing it. Obviously bad examples of doing, investing. That's not called investing, that's called gambling, okay? Now there's another middle ground which is very interesting, which is what the rich people do, right? They bet on companies, okay, at a very early stage. Think about it this way, right? If you had put, say, a few lakhs in Google, okay, when they were like these students in the dormitory,
Right.
okay, imagine you could take a 10 lakh loan. Back then, it must have been like $6,000-7,000.
Right.
They were actually taking checks for that amount back then.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right. How much would that be worth today? It's insane.
I think I would be in a different part of the world and I may not be doing this podcast.
Exactly.
Right. So
Exactly. Okay. So that strata of investors, right?
right.
It's called what? Accredited investor.
Okay.
Basically, what it means is you have so much money that you can afford to lose it all. That's the another definition for an accredited investor.
Right.
Which is all fine. Okay. Now the question I'll ask you is like, would you be willing to lose 100 rupees? Or would you be willing to lose 1,000 rupees? Okay.
Right,
Or maybe
yeah.
5 or maybe 10. Okay. Who decides that?
Right.
You decide it, right?
Right.
So we have this whole concept of regulation now in terms of who controls that. So with this decentralized ecosystem that we have, the community is saying, look, I will do my research and I'll invest my money, okay, in something and
That I believe in,
I
yeah.
believe in,
Right.
and I'm perfectly fine if I lose it all. That's actually the philosophical way of how to go about in this ecosystem.
Right.
It is fraught with a lot of dangers.
Right.
Okay, people lose a lot of money, but there is also an upside to it. Okay, so they call it what? Asymmetric returns.
Right.
Okay. So asymmetric returns is only possible if you are willing to take asymmetric losses as well.
Right. So could you explain what do you mean by asymmetric? So that is disproportionate.
It's disproportionate.
Right.
Okay, so in the sense, like say for instance, if you invest 100 rupees and then you get like 10 rupees every month, that's one kind of investment. You're making like, that's like a huge amount of profit. Actually, if you think about it, 10% every month is great.
Right.
Okay. But then let's say you're looking at like 100x return, right? Or 1,000x return, right? That's how people become wealthy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, is that possible for everyone to do? No, it's only for a certain section of society it's possible to do those kind of investments. But if you make it accessible, okay, and areas like creative field, arts, and all of these can make it possible for you to get these sort of, returns, asymmetric returns.
Right.
And that should make it possible for anybody to invest. So there are a lot of companies that are doing some really exciting stuff. There's a company called Republic, which basically lets you invest anywhere between $50 to $100 in a up and coming startup, right? So you can actually sign up. It's as simple as just signing up, going out there and putting your credit card details and then saying like, I'd like to buy a share in this company. It's not a share. It's like a promise for a future share when
Right.
they become big.
Right.
But they are actually democratizing the way people invest. So NFTs, crypto, all of these things are sort of quasi investor sort of ecosystems.
Right.
And they're actually disrupting the entire investment VC ecosystem.
Yeah,
That's
what I, as I'm reading about this more often, what I'm noticing is this being such a new industry or new space, we really cannot look at it from a lens of what we already know, right? Because this is a completely there is no reference point as such, right? You have to probably do a little bit of, or maybe more of unlearning to really,
Yes.
look at this from a completely new, fresh perspective.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think I had to like really learn economics and like, banking. Why does it, subjects that I thought I would never
Never
have
touch
interest
upon,
in.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You actually go into a lot of this thing. You go down that rabbit hole, it's a very fascinating rabbit hole, but you really start to question everything. Okay. How society is built, how societies function, what's the role of money in society,
Right, yeah.
why do we have inequality. All of those aspects are so when I look at this web3 ecosystem, I think it's one of those, it's the final piece of how technology can create a very bright future for us as humanity, how it can create a bright future, right? I
Okay.
kind of see that happening. We had lost that. Okay, I would say that when the internet first came up and it was invented, and we saw the web for the first time. I remember all of us when we were still in college, we thought this is going to change our lives.
Right. It did.
Okay, it did.
Yeah.
It did. I mean, we are all here because of that. But somewhere along the way, we lost the plot.
Right.
Okay, and I believe it's to do with some of the business models that were not conducive for us as humans. Okay, we sort of lost that plot there. In the last 10 years, we have sort of veered off that path, and now we have a value system on the internet. So crypto and cryptocurrencies and the blockchain and NFTs and these technologies are giving us a store of value on top of the internet that's completely decentralized. So now we're going to see an even bigger, shift,
Wave, yeah.
wave. And you could say, will there be a Facebook or a Google, 10 years from now? Well, it's a question we have to ask ourselves.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe
Whether it's possible.
they may coexist. I think maybe there could be new players emerging and old players still around, or don't know.
I don't know. I don't know,
Right,
Manoj.
yeah.
Okay, I think if you think about, companies, right? And I like to give some of these examples, like, take IBM for instance,
Right.
right? It's over 100 years old. Okay, they've literally reinvented themselves a countless number of times.
Right.
Okay, but if I ask you who's the CEO of IBM, you wouldn't know it.
Right.
Okay, so these companies have sort of have this, or Siemens, 1800s they were formed.
Well-established names.
Well
yeah.
established names. Okay,
Right.
can we confidently say that in 2100, okay, that the word Facebook will have any relevance? With what confidence can you say that it will be relevant? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Right.
Okay, so it's really hard to make these sort of predictions in terms of whether these companies will actually survive. Okay,
Right.
and they will have the same staying power as, say, an IBM or a Hewlett Packard, or
Yeah, I think especially in the technology space, there are so many disruptors, and yeah, so I think it's too hard to really bet on which will stay for the long run, right? So yeah, that's true, man. So I think we definitely can go for a round two someday, but I would like to touch upon some other areas where people can get to know a little bit more about you. Yes, I know that you are one of those people who reads a lot, for sure. Okay. And you started early on, so I'm curious, what are some of the books that has shaped your thinking? Are there any specific takeaways that you remember? And this is a huge, wide ranging kind of question, but something which you remember.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, whenever somebody asks me, okay, name, like 5 books that influenced you, or all of these questions, sometimes like stump me, okay, because it's been so varied. So I think what I would say is like, there are 2-3 genres, I would say, okay, or like, or a series of books that have shaped my thinking, okay, over the last 25-30 years of my life, I would say, right? So if you look at the earliest like days, I was fascinated by science fiction. Okay, science fiction, everything from say Isaac Asimov to Arthur C. Clarke, and even series like Star Trek, for instance. Okay, for some reason I was very fascinated by everything that was futuristic. Okay, and it's a fascinating thing to think about, right? And to predict the future and to think what will be, what will life be like 20 years from now, 30 years from now. That's always fascinated me. So I would say I have always been fascinated by those sort of books. And then when I was in college, I read this book by Aldous Huxley called Brave New World. Okay, that for me was a life defining book at that time when I was in college.
Why is that?
So so do you know this world according to Brave New World and 1984? Okay, have you heard about that concept?
No.
Okay, so 1984 is another book by George Orwell, okay, and it is about a dystopian future, okay, where George Orwell writes about this. He was writing from a communist capitalist sort of a mindset, and he wrote about this dystopian future where this big government controls everything. They control what you say, they control what you do, and like it had this very very top down centralized controlling sort of a thing, and the people are like miserable and they're like oppressed. And that was the picture, right? And it seemed at that time when you read that book that, we never want to go down that road and we don't want to be a society like that, okay? And it seemed like a very interesting, or like almost like a black and white caricature sort of future where you say like, you do not want to do something like that. That's bad.
Right.
And we all understood that. Brave New World, which was written, back in the 1940s, I think, is so ahead of its time, okay, that it's happening today. In Brave New World, it's also a dystopian society, but it's a society where everything is perfect. Okay. People are happy, right? There is this drug that is given by the government, mandatory to everybody, so everyone is happy, man. Okay, so you don't have a choice to be sad or depressed. Okay, the drug has no side effects. Okay, so you're perfectly fine, but you're mandatory to take that drug. Okay, so that you can be happy. People don't have children because children are kind of like manufactured, okay, or like so they don't have any defects. They don't have any of those sort of
they're
problems.
perfectly engineered.
They're perfectly engineered,
right.
Okay, and the society is given this dose, okay, of this bubble that you're happy, okay, and you don't have any disruptions, and they're fine with it. Right, and it brings about a very interesting philosophical question, because today's society is like that, right? You have a mobile phone, you have an internet connection, you're fed with this happy news, okay? Maybe there's a war going on somewhere, but like, who cares? It looks like a video game, right? And then you're conditioned to be in this state, right?
You're getting this dopamine hit
all the time. That is the Brave New World future. And when I read that, at that time, it didn't really sink into my head as to what Aldous Huxley was talking about. And today, there are lots of articles where they're talking, are we heading towards a Brave New World, or are we heading towards a 1984? We are definitely heading towards a Brave New World. Okay, that's the direction. And the book is very chilling because it leaves you with this idea, questioning your very existence. It says like, maybe that's how humans are conditioned, okay? Maybe that's your future, man. Who knows, okay? So it's a very disturbing book, okay? And that it really impacted me. And, I've like stopped reading fiction, okay?
Right.
That was probably like, back in college, I used to read a lot of fiction, but then I moved out of that. Of late, the books that I've been reading has to do a lot to do with like, sort of getting to know yourself. Okay. So I think Thinking Fast and Slow was a book that completely changed me, I would say, right? I mean, my thinking and perception by, Daniel Kahneman, okay, who won the Nobel Prize for, psychology and stuff like that, for behavioral economics and things like that. So it's an amazing book. Okay. So that book, again, has this really fundamental idea about how the human brain conditions you to thinking in a particular way, right? You have the system 1, system 2 way of thinking, like, and again, it didn't have very happy consequence. Okay, again, it's one of those books that is, I don't know why I'm drawn towards these books that give you no hope. Okay, so this book also had this very dry sort of conclusion. It said, look, no matter how much you try, okay, this brain structure that you have, you think you control it, but you don't. Okay.
It leaves you hopeless.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but then it's kind of it's a mirror to show you that this is the reality, and
This is the reality.
and
Yeah.
don't fight the system or
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, in a simple sense, it's like just be humble.
Right.
You know. And I think that book really helped me look at myself and this ego that you have, right? And then to really question, like, who are you, man?
Right.
Who are you? You might think you're this guy or
Right.
whatever. Okay. But sorry, that's just an illusion that you've made for yourself. It's not who you are. Okay. You're
Yeah,
different
this is
versions.
a mental image you built around your own personality, and you're trying to
Exactly.
hold on to that, right?
Exactly. And I think personally that has helped me immensely.
Okay.
To be able to just take it a little bit lightly, not to take yourself too seriously at
Right.
all.
Any other books you wanna?
I think that, I think apart from that, I would say, any books related to history and stuff like that. I think this book about Genghis Khan, I forgot what the name is. Okay. That was really fascinating. I'm not very interested in reading biographies or like basically, stories about people and what they did. I've never found that to be inspiring in
Or
any way.
interesting, okay.
Yeah, because I think, those are all like one-sided views of, some good, interesting biographies.
That could
out
be
there.
glorification of their own stories.
Exactly,
and,
man.
okay.
I think we as a society, we keep going into this cycle, right? Like Elon Musk, and you have your Mark Zuckerbergs, and you have all of these people, and they're all like media concocted, like, caricatures, right? And they're all caricatures at the end of the day, right? But I find the story of humans in general, like in groups, what they're accomplishing, that's a much more fascinating story. That's more pertinent. Okay. We like simple, analogies. Oh, this happened because Alexander the Great was this charming general. Fine. There's like so many other things that are, that make him who he was, or
Right.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think, these simplified narratives, I don't find them particularly interesting.
Yeah, I think that there was a great deal of damage done by our schools teaching us history, because it was a narrative which was very, very one-sided, right? I think.
Yeah.
To a large extent, maybe when you explore a completely opposite, point of view from a different author about the same story, then you start seeing from multiple angles.
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
Right. So yeah.
I do think that this, they call this the cult of personality, right? And we were taught this whole aspect of hero worship, or like,
Right.
there is this one person, knight in shining armor, and it permeates through everything, from our politics to, like, school to education to everything, right? We just have this idea, when we gravitate towards this very simplified narrative, okay? It's like, give me that 140 character answer, man.
Right.
How am I successful? Elon Musk is successful. Maybe I'm just going to read what he did, and that's how I'm going to be successful. Right?
It's not that simple.
It is not. In fact, it's like the opposite.
Right.
Okay, you probably should not do anything that they did. You should do everything different.
Name 3 people from the past or present who come to mind when you think of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, this kind of gets me back to the say. I think I answered this question, right? So, I have.
So obviously you answer the question very differently by telling you don't hold to these ideas of personality. So I think I think
it's seriously, I really implore everyone to sort of look at how humans behave in groups versus how humans behave as individuals, right?
Would you recommend Sapiens as a book for understanding that as an evolution of human?
I think Sapiens is a good start. Okay. That definitely had some interesting ideas. But then as you keep, the interesting thing now is, like, when I read Sapiens now, I can really pick holes in a lot of some of those thought processes. Okay. Recently I read a book called A Dawn of Everything, okay, by David Graeber, and I forgot the other guy's name. Again, that book also has some, things in it that, are questionable. But, one thing that we have lost as a society is the ability to argue from both sides. Okay. And I remember in school, we used to have debate competitions.
Right.
And then you're given a topic and you don't know whether you're going to argue for or against.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You got to be prepared for
both.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a skill that has to be taught for everyone today. It's the most important skill.
I think if you can simultaneously hold two contradicting
contradictory
point of view,
ideas. Yeah.
that is a skill. I totally agree because it can be the truth or the reality for each one of them.
Absolutely.
Right. There is no ultimate
Absolutely.
truth in that. Like what is my truth need not be your truth at all. Right.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And I think as a society, we are trying to punish that mindset.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't reward that mindset.
Correct.
Okay. We think we are being flippant. Okay. But it's not. I mean, there are multiple realities. Okay. And that's how we should look at literally every aspect of life.
Right. Yeah. That's wonderful. Right. Now we move on to the last segment because we are running short of time. This is the rapid fire question round.
Sure.
Okay. Questions will be rapid, answers need not be. So, what's something new happening in your life right now?
I'm brewing my own beer, which is turning out to be good. So that's something new.
What's the name of the brand?
Oh my goodness, it's called Kudikaran. Okay.
Could you please explain to our global audience?
So see, I shouldn't be saying that. Okay, what I wanted to do was release this unknown brand which no one has heard of. Okay, and to be anonymous. So yeah, it's like if you listen to this podcast, you might be able to pin it on who the person is. But then that's a clue. Okay, so that's it.
In which subject were you best at school?
Man, that's a hard one. I think English.
English, okay. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Bangalore.
Love it, man. I vote for the same. What's the first thing you notice about someone when you meet them?
No, I've never thought of that. Their clothes.
Okay, how they come across.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether they're like uptight, iron, or whether they're in shorts and chilled out.
So what's do you have a preference to?
I'm always like the chilled out. The more
Okay.
eccentric you are in your dressing, okay, the more interesting I feel you're going to be.
Okay, good point. Any favorite shows to binge?
Shows. Well, not off late, man. I have not really found anything, that has
Binge
got
worthy
me.
lately.
Yeah, nothing has been binge worthy off late, unfortunately.
Okay. Have you ever stolen anything?
Ideas, of course.
Okay. If you had to teach one subject, what are you teaching?
If I have to teach one subject, I would teach astrophysics, astronomy.
Oh, so the dream is on, man. Okay.
Absolutely. I love teaching that.
Have you ever left a 1-star rating on something? What did you review and why did you rate it that way?
No, man, I have never left a 1-star rating. I feel very conscious. I think it's one of the flaws I have. Any restaurant I go to or whatever.
Yeah, if you have a bad experience, right? So
I don't.
You
In
let
fact,
it be.
I have this sort of evil streak. Okay, I'm like, if I'm the one who suffered this, I want others also to suffer. So maybe I'll just give a 5-star so somebody else can come and just be as miserable as me.
You're really evil, man. Okay. Oh God. Do you prefer working remotely or in an office?
Well, remotely has been a amazing experience. It's contrary to what everyone else says, but then I'm just loving it.
So you would like to continue.
I will always continue this.
What do you do to unwind after a long day of work?
Listen to music, watch something on Netflix. That's it. Very simple stuff, nothing particular as such.
Do you have any annual family traditions?
Annual family traditions, yeah, always like vacation, that is like at least 2 vacations a year is like mandatory, so that is there always.
All right. What is something that you have done in your life that no one would expect? I think you have a reputation for actually doing things which people anyway don't expect, but then
What did I do that no one ever expected me to do? I was part of an exam heist, okay, where I helped a guy. I can't take any names or whatever, but I helped this guy. Basically helped him write his exam.
Okay.
Where I basically wrote for him. Okay.
Oh my!
Right, but I wasn't in the exam hall to do it. Okay, this was done in a sort of Ocean's 11, right? So think Ocean's 11 style bank heist.
Wow.
Where the money goes from is stolen and then it goes in a van and stuff like that. The only difference was this was answer sheets that are going from the college, but they're intercepted halfway in between, and then an answer sheet is inserted and then it goes in. 8 was I'm writing a script for it, okay, and there's going to be a movie. It is a fascinating film. Okay, but yeah, that's one thing I have done. Yeah.
Guys who are listening, if you want to hear the full story in the members only content, it will be available for the paid subscribers. So please do check out the paid membership for behind the scenes. So, all right. So if you're banned from the internet for 2 straight months, what are some things you will be doing?
If I'm banned from the internet for 2 straight months, okay, so I will basically, I think I'll write. That is something that I think I would definitely do. I'll write. Okay, I'm paying serious, attention to my writing of late, and I think it is helping a lot. That's a big change I've made recently. So yeah.
So you prefer long format or short form writing?
Long form.
Okay.
I've been writing every day consistently for the last year, I would say. Every day I write at least 1 or 2 pages, whatever comes to my mind. And that has been a very helpful exercise. Nothing in particular, but you just put some ideas on paper. That's it.
That's true, man. So Arun, this has been a blast. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I feel so unsatisfied. I feel there's so much more to talk about. So definitely we must do a round 2. There are so many interesting aspects of your life that I really want to dive into. But this has been good. And where can people find you? What are your social handles?
I think as of now, the best way to find me is Twitter. It's Benty, Abenty. So you can find me on Twitter, and that's kind of where I sort of spill my guts now and then. And I'm hoping to start a blog. Like I said, I hope to make it a little bit more formal, but time permits, I'll start doing that. But I need to do it. I feel it's like one of the things I need to do this year for myself.
Sure. And if people need to check out your work, where can they?
Again, Twitter would be the ideal place because
okay,
everything
great.
is there on my profile. So
wonderful. Okay.
I'm not on any other platforms.
Any parting thoughts? Any final words?
No, nothing, Manoj. I think it's been fascinating, to be able to just come in and have this sort of a conversation. We keep having, I don't get these sort of opportunities to come and talk about these free-ranging topics and sort of go back and sort of, think about all the things that have happened in life. And I thank you for the opportunity to, giving me this opportunity to share this ideas. Awesome. And I'm surprised that you find it interesting.
You would be surprised that so many of my audience would find this really interesting, and I'm sure this will open up a huge set of people who want to really understand what you do and the work that you're involved in. I think this opens up a lot of avenues for aspiring artists. Who knows? So thank you for this. And with that, let's conclude today's call.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Thank you.
Okay, it's been a blast, man. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the key points discussed will be available in the show notes section at www.rareearth.com. That is RAREERTH.com. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you really enjoyed, please do give me your feedback, review, and rate on iTunes or any listening app of your choice. Do subscribe and share. Thank you.